And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Noria. Noria is a game that Stronghold Games has. It's about these floating islands, and you're getting resources and building these great projects. It's kind of a futuristic game that's not so negative. You can see that by the colorful box here. But this is a Euro game. This is actually kind of a puzzle Euro game where you're going to have spinning wheels. This whole game here is based on 3 spinning wheels and using the actions on these wheels at the right time. Let me show you. The way to understand this game is there's 4 projects in the game at the top of the board. And as the game progresses, players are going to be moving up on these projects. And this is where most of the scoring of the game takes place. As players are moving up on the different projects, they're also going to be occasionally moving a cube down on these projects, or maybe multiple cubes. At the end of the game, each project is going to be multiplied by the number of the level you're at. So the blue's at level 5 here, times 4. This is worth 20 points at the end of the game. And so players, everything you are doing is towards this. So there are 4 projects. There's also going to be possible cubes down here. This is going to give you points for your highest level 1. So this they give for blue, their highest level would be, again, 4 times 5, another 20 points. And this gives you points for your lowest level 1. And if you don't have one of the 4 on the board, that would be a 0. So you can see the projects over here. If you get all 4 of these cubes are down, this is 16 times that level. But those are harder projects to move up on. So this is the end goal of what you're trying to do. Down here is a track which is going to keep track of the rounds in the game. So you're going to take these tokens off to show that the rounds are here. The tokens turn over to become a 10 times resource if you need that. But now let's go to the player board where the meat of the game happens. Here's a player's player board, and it has 3 wheels, and these wheels are going to spin. Every turn, the top wheel is going to completely rotate. So there's a token here, and you're going to have a different token every other turn. The bottom wheel is going to take 4 turns to rotate, and then the wheel underneath that will take 6 turns to rotate. Now, what players are going to do is they're going to be taking actions on their turn based on anything that's in the active one. They can take at most 3 actions, 1 action on each wheel, and you have to be able to draw lines between the actions. So, for example, if the board looked like this, I could take these 3 actions, or I could take these 3 actions, but you can't do this because then you're going through another possible action here. You'll notice there's spots here that don't have actions. As the game goes by, you'll have the opportunity to put more actions in these and to choose the actions. And if you play the expert version of the game, you can even put these actions in there yourself at the beginning of the game, choosing how you start. So the different actions, the green, the pink, and the black give you 3 of your resources over the game. Whenever you use that as an action, you will look at the number of ships you have. Each player has another little player board over here. So let's say I take the pink action. If I have 2 pink ships there, I'm going to get 2 of the pink resources. And the same thing with the green and the black. The different ships that you have are going to provide more resources each time you take that action. If you take the action of this brown one here, the city building one, this is how you move up your projects on the board. Over here, you're able to move up the projects if you pay this correct number of resources. So you'll see here on the black one, if I want to go from this red level, if he wants to move up 1, he would have to pay 4 of the black resources. If the blue wants to move up, he has to pay 4 of green or pink, and at least 1 of them has to be different. So you can't pay 4 pinks or 4 greens. He could pay 3 pinks and 1 green, and that's fine. Over here, you're going to be having to move, you're going to have to use complex goods to move up on those. And there's a different way to get complex goods. Let me show you that. Over the course of the game, you're going to get possible complex goods, and they're going to be placed here. Now, these don't have tokens like the green, pink, and black ones do. Instead, there is a certain disc that will let you fill these up essentially. So 2 greens, I can flip this over, and later on I can spend this to move up on that project. Now the brown disc not only lets you move up on a project, but it also lets you add more discs to your board. When you add more discs to your board, you simply go over here. Black, pink, and green discs are free, and the other discs are going to cost 1 to 4 of your basic resources, and you'll be able to add them. You'll have to remember as you add them which of the wheels you're adding it to and where on the wheel you're going to add it. The tool disc, that's this gray one up here, lets you upgrade one of your discs. When you upgrade a disc, you're going to be able to use that action twice, although you can only use 1 upgraded disc on your turn. So on any turn, the most actions you could ever get are 4. A tool disc also lets you fill up your complex resources. You can fill up either 1 in each column, the different resources, or you can fill up as many as you want in one of the rows. That's up to you. You also have basically a special disc. There's not one on this board. When you do this one, you basically can use a disc next to it twice. So it's kind of like an upgraded disc in a sense. And then finally, there's the journey disc. That's the blue one. When you use a journey disc, you're going to be discovering new islands. You'll be taking one of these and revealing it. When you reveal it, you're going to put a certain number of factories on it. So for example, this one here says the number of players +1. So there'll be 4 pink factories put on it. And on a player's turn, what they're going to be doing, oh, and I'm sorry, you'll also be putting some of the complex resources on here, 1, 2, 1, and 2. You're going to take your guy and journey to that island. When you journey to that island, you can take one of these factories, or you can take some of the complex resources. That's up to you. To take the complex resource, you're going to take one of these factories that you have off your board. Each player has 7 factories on their board, and put it on the board over here. And then you get that many complex resources. That does 2 things. It gets you those complex resources, but also as you're removing these, you're going to show some of these gears, and the more gears showing, you'll get from turn to turn. And I'll talk a little bit more about gears in a second. Whenever you go visit one of these places, you can also take a factory, or you can put out one of these, or you can just go to a new island. There's only so many islands, and so you can choose which island you're going to go to. Different islands are going to have different airships and different complex resources on them. The gears here stand for knowledge, and they can be used for a variety of things. You can use gears to move your wheels extra spots, or even exchange where the different discs are, exchange 2 discs on your wheel. Also, at the end of your turn, you can do a politics phase, and you have to spend a certain number of gears, which will increase as the game goes by, to pick one of these projects and bring a cube down on that, and then pick another project and remove a cube, making it impossible for that project to go up to its maximum value. And so you'll have to pay gears to do that. So you have to decide the best time to do that. And then at the end of your turn, you rotate your wheel and you get ready for the next thing. And that's it. You're just going to keep going turn after turn after turn, trying to figure out the best way to utilize your wheel so that you can score for those projects. At the end of the game, you'll score each of these projects, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Okay, so the artwork in this game is nice. I mean, don't get me wrong. As cool as this looks, this is a fairly themeless game. You're moving things around, right? But I do like how this island looks. I like the artwork on here. The tokens themselves are fine, except for these round tokens. I really don't like them. They are entirely too small, and they actually look like things you would throw away out of the game. And then they have those 10 times on the back. If you're using that with another resource to show that you have 10 of that resource, it's a little clunky. I don't mind these big boards. Again, the beautiful artwork on the islands is fine, and everything kind of works together. And the wheel. Now the wheel, if you're not careful, when you're moving these wheels, if they get tilted up, you can see it will slide right over those. I had that happen a couple times, like, wait, I thought I had an action. So you just have to make sure you hold down when you turn them, because they all come off. This is just a plastic piece here that fits into this board. The board itself shows all the different actions that each of the things do, and really after I don't know, a few rounds, you do know what everything's going to do. That's not a problem. So the game, I mean, I would say the components here are fantastic, but they aren't bad by any means other than those round tokens. And I especially do like the gear tokens or the knowledge tokens. They look pretty good. And the whole thing has a very colorful, vibrant feel. Alright, so that's the game. It's a fairly involved game with not a ton of player interaction, except you do care about what everyone else is doing. Because really, there's only 6 scoring things in this video. There's the 4 projects, and then your highest project, and then basically you're trying to have all your guys on the board, your lowest project. And so you're really watching, since there's only 6 scoring, you have to figure out where everyone is on those tracks. In a 2-player game, you might be on 2 different tracks. In a 3-player game, there's different combos. In a 4-player game, you cannot be exactly like someone else, right? And if you are exactly like someone else, then you need to be 1 higher on the track than them. So there's that interaction. It's not a solitaire game, but a lot of the game is solitaire because you're going to sit and stare at your thing for a while. You're going to sit there and move it around. Now, I do wish that the rules are really nice. I like the fact that the rules start by talking about the projects, and they say, this is how scoring is. I mean, that's the way you should teach a game anyway. The rules do a good job at that. They say, this is how scoring works, and then they go through everything. And they're very redundant on how everything works. That's fine. The only thing that was a little confusing is like which ones you can take. I wish they had kind of just drawn lines on the rings themselves and say, follow the lines. And that's how you figure out which ones actions to do. But after a while, you figure out 3 actions, so on. It's not that difficult. But that's the only niggling thing about that. But you're going to sit there and puzzle that out. You're going to say, okay, I want to do that action. You can take the actions in any order. So which action do I want to do first? Do I want to use some of my knowledge to spin a wheel a click? And if I do this, what's going to happen next turn? Okay, so this action came into pink. I need some pink resources, but I want to take this action on the outside wheel instead. So pink's going to be here for 2 turns, so I can take it next turn. So you're thinking along the lines of doing that. Also, when you get these, where do you put them? Now, obviously, having that building one and that inner wheel is good. You're taking it every turn. But I put a journey one in my inner wheel, and I was able to fly around and get stuff really quickly at the beginning of the game. And resources run out. Those islands run out of those ships. If you don't spend time going out and getting some of those ships for resources, you're going to get a whole lot less resources as the game goes by. And that's problematic. Now, the game has a few... They're called black market things where you can trade in some knowledge for a resource if you need one desperately, or trade in some resources for knowledge, but the rate is awful. It's something I've done it, but it's something you do only in desperation. And also your mind has to get behind. You have those pink, green, and black resources, which by the way means something thematically, but I don't remember. And then you have the complex resources, which are much more expensive. So maybe you should just take one of those tracks that you can shoot to the top with just those resources. But everyone will do that, right? So if you take complex, fewer people are doing that. And at the end of the game, there's an interaction there. I'm going to take a cube away. You're never going to get 12 points per spot on that one. There's a lot of meaty goodness to this game. It's definitely a game where I think the table's going to be quiet for a good chunk. You're not going to be doing a lot of trash talking, because when it's not your turn, you're certainly going to spend a lot of time sitting there looking at your wheel, thinking the best way to move it. And I think that's really one of the benefits, right? This game's going to have a lot of analysis paralysis. However, when it's not your turn, you sit there and figure out what actions you're going to take. So when it comes to your turn, you'll be like, all right, these are the actions I'm going to take. Because it's something, no one else can mess with your wheel. No one else can really mess with you. They might change a few things in the projects and stuff, but your wheel is your own domain. And so you can sit there and rotate it to your heart's content and figure it out as it's going to be rotated, 1 click each. What new things are going to be there, what's the best thing to do, and I like it. So it's an interesting game. It has a different feel than many of these other games. Even though the theme isn't very strong, it is a different, unique theme. So if you're looking for something that feels different than many of the other games out there, there's a lot of Euro games, and this one does many of the same things, but does so with kind of a cool action selection wheel thing. You'll definitely want to check out Noria. Dice Tower Judgment approved!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
Yeah?